Hello, History 363. So today I want to talk about the younger brother, the younger Gracchus brother, and that is Gaius Gracchus, who of course comes of age under the influence of his older brother and also aware of his terrible fate, his murder in the Forum in 133 BC. Young Gaius Gracchus, however, nonetheless continues a pretty standard aristocratic career. He serves for a while on his brother's agrarian commission as his replacement, and subsequently is elected quaestor in 126 BC, where he's sent to Sardinia, where there's an army dealing with a rebellion. He then returns and in 123 runs for tribune of the plebs, and he wins. And it's notable, Tiberius Gracchus had really had just one big thing he wanted to do: agrarian reform, and anything else that he did, the recall of his rival tribune Octavius, or the annexation of Pergamon, the acceptance of the will, this was all done to support the agrarian commission. He's really a one-trick pony policy-wise. Not so Gaius Gracchus. Gaius Gracchus actually seems to realize that if he wants to do reforms, he needs to reach out to different constituencies within Roman society. And indeed, he's really one of the first Roman politicians we know of that seems really aware of how there are different constituencies that may have different desires. Again, there's been some awareness that, say, for example, you should be nice to freedmen and when you campaign. But Gaius Gracchus seems to actually realize that there's different elements of Roman society that may want different things, and so therefore, if he can offer a wide-ranging program, he thinks, well, maybe he might be more successful. This actually, it might be kind of a step towards creating a kind of political machine. So one faction that really actually hasn't gotten a lot of attention up until now is the people living in the city of Rome itself, which has been growing. Rough estimate is that it's at this point around 250,000 people altogether. But this also includes people who have sort of moved to Rome to take advantage of the increasingly dynamic economy there. And of course, those people are voters. In fact, it's easier if you live in Rome to vote, because you can just saunter down to the Forum or up to the Capitoline or over to the Campus Martius, vote, and come back. So these are voters that have really never been actively tapped. But now Tiberius Gracchus has something for them, and that is the first Lex Fermentia, the first grain law. And this allows the Roman plebs to purchase grain at a discounted price. So you're still paying for the grain, but it's now going to be subsidized. And it's quite likely the subsidy is based on the deduction that Roman soldiers have for their grain when they're in the army. And so every month you can buy up to 5 modii of wheat for a set subsidized price. And you have to pay probably more on the open market for anything beyond that. Now, this clearly is a boon to people living in Rome who nonetheless may be facing, amongst other things, high food prices. Because as the population of Rome rises, inevitably the price of grain is going to rise as simply the supply and demand drives up the price. So at least for the inhabitants of Rome and its immediate area, the fact that you can go to Rome and buy subsidized grain, it's a real benefit. He also revives a plan for colonization, and he hits on a seemingly obvious solution, which is if we're out of land in Italy, and increasingly also in Cisalpine Gaul, why not have a colony outside of the entire Italian peninsula? Why not colonize overseas in a place where we've defeated an enemy and we can take their land? And there is one obvious site for a flourishing commercial and agricultural city that is open at the moment, and that site is Carthage, which the Romans have razed, which Scipio Aemilianus had razed to the ground in 146 BC, and had left the site empty, forbidding any resettlement there. Carthage is a really well-situated city, very close to a lot of good agricultural land. Just as a note, the Romans did not sow the fields of Carthage with salt. That's a kind of myth that doesn't appear until kind of the 4th or 5th century AD. So great agricultural land around Carthage. That part of North Africa is really good for growing wheat and olive oil and things like that. So he says, I'm going to go do a colony at Carthage, which he then personally helps to establish that colony. Now, notably, that colony is controversial because there are at least some, the opponents of Gaius Gracchus, who believe that the site of Carthage is sort of ritually cursed, and therefore it would be wrong to settle a colony there. Now, Gaius Gracchus also passes a law that relates to service in the Roman army, actually probably several laws. One, a law preventing underage boys from being recruited into the legions, and another law which says that Roman soldiers won't have to have their cost of their clothing deducted from their pay. And so this is, again, another kind of big benefit to Roman soldiers. It effectively raises their pay, which up till now, the pay of Roman soldiers has been pretty steady since at least the Second Punic War. So a benefit for men who are serving in the legions. He also, however, reaches out to a increasingly important kind of stratum in Roman society, and those are the equites, that is, men who have a census that qualifies them to serve in the Roman cavalry, and particularly the men who are enrolled in the 18 centuries of the equites. Tiberius Gracchus realizes that these guys may be, a bit status insecure. At this point, the cavalry service itself in the Roman army seems to be waning, that equites, by and large, aren't actually getting on horses and riding around and fighting the enemy. Many of them are extremely wealthy, and many of them become wealthy because they're involved in corporations called, in public corporations that contract to the Roman state, the publicani. These are the publicans in the Bible, when Jesus is eating with the publicans and sinners. So right now, most publicani, which are actually, under Roman law, publicani are kind of allowed to form sort of a modified version of a limited liability corporation. And by and large, they get started to just provide supplies to the Roman army. So the consul can just give one contract for, say, wheat or clothing, and doesn't necessarily have to scrounge as much himself. So the publicani have been fulfilling these kinds of public contracts mostly for military logistics. But now Gaius Gracchus says, you know what, we have this problem. We have the province in Asia, which at this point has been annexed. There's been a brief rebellion, which the Romans have to crush, but now there's no question that that Asia, the area around Pergamon, which is now is a Roman province. So that being said, the tithe that province used to pay to the kings of Pergamon, we now need to collect it. But how should we do it? He says, what I'm going to do is it's going to be done through tax farming. That is publicani. And of course, publicani have oftentimes been collecting certain types of custom dues and bridge tolls in Italy as well. So they've got a bit of experience with tax collection. So you might contract to collect the port dues at, say, Cumae or Puteoli. He says every 5 years, the consuls will give a contract to collect the taxes of Asia, which is again primarily an agricultural tithe, 10%. And that way, these private companies with this contract can go to Asia. And of course, the whole point of tax farming is you give the state an estimate of what you think you can collect, and then anything you can collect over that, you get to keep. So there's a contract auction, a bidding auction, and then the publicani go to Asia, and inevitably there's the tendency that they will just really try to shake down people for as much tax as they can get. This is one reason why Jesus is eating with publicans and sinners, and the Pharisees don't like that. The publicans, again, aren't the big wealthy equites who are doing this government contracting in Rome. They're the local thugs who, in early imperial scenario, are shaking down the locals for taxes. So this is a big benefit to this class of equites who are increasingly kind of retooling and rebranding as businessmen, finance guys, public contractors. And now they have a huge lucrative contract that they can bid for, all the more reason to support Gaius Gracchus. He also gives equites a new public function. So remember the Quaestio de Repetundis that was set up back in 149 BC to try provincial magistrates who engage in misconduct, particularly extortion in the provinces. Up till now, the juries in those standing courts have been senators. So if there's a trial, a group of senators will be selected and will be seated as the jury. The argument, I think, is that, well, wait, the provincial magistrates are senators. The Senate is a pretty tight institution. Right? There's only 300 guys. These guys are all related to each other. They intermarried with each other. They go to the same dinner parties. Isn't that a little cozy that the guy who's engaging in provincial misconduct and extortion is now being tried by his immediate peers? So Gaius Gracchus passes a law that says the juries and the Quaestor de Repetundus and other standing courts that have also been established will be equites. And this also gives equites something, a new kind of political function. And it may be that at this point, having given up on cavalry service, they are kind of looking for a new access to political relevance, given that these are guys who are wealthy but not wealthy enough to actually run for office and try to enter the Senate, which we know costs a huge amount of money. So the equites can make money off public contracts, and then they also get to have a political role as the jurors on these in the standing courts, particularly the Quaestor de Repetundus. Now, these reforms are spread out over the course of 2 years, and one almost understated thing that happens is that Gaius Gracchus runs for re-election after serving his first term as tribune. This had been the thing that had prompted the murder of Tiberius Gracchus, and yet he runs and he wins, and this seems to be something that people are okay with. Possibly this is the benefit of Gaius Gracchus himself reaching out to different constituencies. Possibly he is somehow seen as less threatening, at least at that moment, as his brother. That being said, when you've got a politician who now has a lot of people who are grateful to the policies he's put out, you can see how this could alarm the senatorial elite. And so in 122, we start to see more resistance to Tiberius Gracchus and his policies. In particular, Gaius Gracchus is interested. Remember that the agrarian law still stands, but it's been stymied because all of these Italians, hold the excess land, and there's no way for them. There's basically the way of mediating that has been shut down. So Gaius Gracchus says, well, wait a second. What if we just make at least the Latins, and it seems a lot of people in Latin colonies work ager publicus, what if we simply give citizenship to all of the Latin colonies? Then they become Roman citizens. Then they wouldn't be eligible for this kind of special mediation before the consul. And then we could keep distributing the land. And it should be noted, in this year, not only is Gaius Gracchus, he's tribune, one of his fellow tribunes is Fulvius Flaccus, who is an ex-consul, actually, who has now run for tribune, going down the cursus enorm, but had been a member of that agrarian commission. This, however, starts to get shut down. And I think one issue is if one tribune proposes citizenship for all of the Latins, there's probably 100,000 people living in Latin colonies. Now, one tribune will have 100,000 Latins who are grateful to him for getting citizenship, or maybe ungrateful, since it might be then used to kick them off the public land. But a lot of these guys will be small farmers. They won't feel the impact, but they'll have Roman citizenship. They'll be happy. It seems that the Latins are increasingly wanting Roman citizenship because some of the privileges of Roman law are beneficial, increasingly beneficial in the kind of broader Mediterranean economy. So this gets shut down, and one way that it gets shut down is the sort of faction opposed to Gaius Gracchus finds another tribune to basically be a kind of a stool. This is a guy named Livius Drusus. He stands up and says, Gaius Gracchus only wants to found a couple of colonies. I want to found a dozen colonies. And so essentially stands up and puts forward a number of proposals to try to sort of drown out Gaius Gracchus's proposals. The plan to give citizenship therefore falls short. Gaius Gracchus runs for re-election again for 121, and he loses. And this seems to be a moment of crisis for Gaius Gracchus, because on one hand, he's clearly in his second tribuneship felt a lot more organized resistance, and he remembers the fate of his brother. and probably suspects that he is himself likely to be dragged and put on trial, likely over the issue of founding the colony on cursed ground, and that could be perhaps the basis for some kind of treason charge or perdulo charge. Therefore, Gaius Gracchus, upon losing his election at the actual committee itself, surrounds himself with a number of followers. They take up arms and they go to the Aventine, again, a central place in the sort of mythology of plebeian resistance. And now the consul, Lucius Opimius, organizes himself violent resistance against, or not resistance, violence against them. So you actually now have not armies, but two basically organized forces of Gaius Gracchus and his followers, and the consul who has recruited senators, sons of senators. There's even some Cretan archers that are in the city about to go out on a military campaign. So he takes these mercenaries and deploys them against Gaius Gracchus. And Opimius is ultimately able to overwhelm and crush Gracchus and his supporters. Gaius Gracchus commits suicide. A number of his followers are also either killed in the fighting, assassinated shortly afterwards, or again liquidated afterwards through judicial executions. So again, we have this massive issue of violence. And this violence is actually legalized in a novel, if somewhat, well, in an ominous but novel form. That is, there was no legal underpinning to the murder of Tiberius Gracchus. The senators just busted up their benches and beat him to death. However, before Lucius Opimius, who's actually organizing a kind of informal army against Gaius Gracchus, before he goes and attacks, the Senate passes something called the Senatus Consultum Ultimum, the final decree of the Senate, which is essentially a kind of declaration of martial law. It authorizes the consul to do whatever he needs to do to see that the republic does not come to harm. That's the kind of sanitized version. But again, it basically allows the consul to take any action, including previously extra-legal actions against Roman citizens. It kind of trumps any claim to provocatio in order to quell the situation. Now, Lucius Opimius acts with, again, tremendous and somewhat indiscriminate violence. But now, for a second time, we've had a tribune of the plebs propose a significant reform program. Much of that program, incidentally, does endure. A few of Gaius Gracchus's laws are revoked, including the legal charter for this colony in Carthage is taken away. The colony's still there, and they're still farming the land and living their lives, but they are no longer considered a formal legal political entity. But it seems many of the other laws, including reforms to the army, the collection of the Asian tithes, the lex frumentaria, those are allowed to persist. So it's the interesting thing is that the issue isn't just the reforms themselves. It rather is the power that those reforms give to the reformer, and that the Senate is willing to crush with really quite hideous violence. So with that, we have the sad fate of the brothers Gracchi, and next time we will talk about Rome in the late 1st century BC and move towards the civil wars of Marius and Sulla probably next week. I'll see you soon.